congrats on the film. Amazing and funny.
Thank you so much.
This is the third time I've watched it, and it was funnier this time than it was the first 2 times.
Okay, everyone, listen up. Today's gonna be a big day.
But I'm curious because, when everything happened, when the lockdown happened, when the pandemic started, entertainment seemed to be one of the things that was like, we really didn't know what to do. And there was really no, well, you put plexiglass up and you do this, or and how long did it take you guys before you sort of decided on, we should do this movie, we should do this mockumentary, and actually feed into what is happening with us personally?
The moment we went on unemployment. We were like, let's create something. What are we doing? If we're maybe it sounds horrible. Some people are like, we're getting paid to not work right now. Let's go work. Let's do something creative. Let's go out there.
Being creative, we were incredibly bored, and no one was doing any work. And so we said, how can we make this happen safely and effectively? And we just did one step at a time.
We started really, I think, outlining in November of 2020. Yeah. So it took us about 6 months of really kind of wondering how we're going to have that creative outlet, talking to all of our active friends and just different locations, and nobody really knowing what to do. And we're like, there may be an opportunity here. If we do this safely, if we do this the right way, we can have something that is a bit of a time capsule and something that we all collectively, universally now relate to. And have a chance to kind of, hopefully pull some hope out of the midst of something that felt so dark.
We needed it too, as the performers.
That's right. We did for ourselves.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because when I watched it, and again, entertainment was, I think entertainment and education were the 2 areas that were the most lost in terms of how to do anything virtually, because it doesn't work really that way. It's, those things are about connection, and we were being told, don't connect, stay away. But as I'm watching the film, and you've got the plastic, and you've got barriers, and people are doing things, it's ridiculous, but then I stop and I go, I kind of remember it happening this way, and I kind of feel like, what was the process of kind of going what's the ridiculous part of this, but not so ridiculous that it doesn't feel like the thing that we all actually went through?
Well, it was the thing that we went through. Every single thing that you saw out there was something that we saw on the news, we saw happening in real life. I mean, even the anal swab, you guys. Everything. I remember seeing it on the news late at night, just scrolling my phone. I was like, Chris, we gotta put this in tomorrow. We're shooting tomorrow. We have to put this in.
Schools were using, the bands were using those pods.
Tubas coming out of pods.
And for a while,
everything.
For a while, I don't know if it was Broadway, there were definitely local theaters that were using the plexiglass almost boxes on wheels to kind of roll around and still kind of create art in the midst of it. And it was a big question of, some of it was DIY, some of it was, I can go out and buy this. Then we had shortages and supply chain stuff. So a lot of it was just how do we get back to working? That's the ultimate goal, and I think a lot of small businesses, tried to make that happen.
Well, the biggest thing too is we wanted to find joy during a horrible time, and that's the whole theme of the film too, is finding joy. You can't stop the arts, right? It's free. As artists, art is free, and so we wanted to put that in the film, and also for us, let's create something. Let's use this horrible time to still find hope and joy. And theater will go on. And
that helped keep it grounded, to answer your question on that end. I think as ridiculous as things seemed, it was a bit like a time capsule, like Matt said. But in the end, most of us had training through the Groundlings program, and you can speak to that too, but their entire training is staying grounded. That's the whole point. And so being real and not being so wacky that it's unbelievable.
Yeah, we spent time with Sam DeSer, Steph Barkley, awesome people. Sam and I are Groundlings. A lot of us went through the Groundlings program, but the whole point too is we spent more time focusing on the characters. We would, just pages of the characters. We would interview, we would talk. We did an hour and a half interview with both of you. You want to talk about that? Was that weird?
Yeah. No, you had a great outline. You all three of you, it was so thoughtful. What we received as actors was so thoughtful, our characters, and it was just, you made it so easy. And it's great because you're all creative and you're looking for the joy, we're finding the joy, and it makes it easy for us because we have something to connect to now because it's happening in real life, and now we're making a movie about it. is so wonderful. With the seeing it on screen is just, oh God, wow. It is, yeah, like you said, it's like we're reminded of this time that was so uncertain, and you see these people trying to figure it out. And we were trying to figure it out too at the same time. Like everything was very uncertain, so you're kind of capturing that, which is really.
Yeah.
Well, and so obviously, this is a very spiritual cousin to films like Waiting for Guffman and Best in Show. I mean, it has that, that mockumentary, and I mean, all that stuff is the DNA all goes back to that because they kind of originated that. How much of this is scripted, because you guys are credited as writers, I'll just say. How much of this is scripted? How much of this is just everybody getting together and playing around, and then I'll get to the second part of that after we get to the first part of that.
Yeah, the entire film is improvised. So we wrote about a 30-page story. We mapped out scenes, and then we had an outline for each scene, and then we would do, we would show up, improvise a scene, it'd be about 10 minutes long, which is way too long. And then we would, the moments that we improvised that were really fun, we'd be like, okay, let's condense that into 2 minutes. And then we would also do takes where we just said, just do anything. Let's just see what happens.
And focusing on character was really important. So I think for us, if an audience can really buy the character and really invest in the character, if we love the character, we can put the character anywhere, and we love them.
Doing anything.
Yeah, and so that was really important to focus on character.
And so because you guys had kind of, I'm assuming, history together, does that make everything, I mean, you're essentially making movie friends, you guys know each other's rhythms, you guys are able to sort of work much easier than just if you auditioned a bunch of people and everybody meets on day one. Does that make the process just that much simpler for all of you?
I mean, Stephanie, I mean, we've done sketches, shorts together, and
Yeah, we have. I mean, we have so much fun doing that, and it's kind of like sculpting or painting something little by little, especially during that weird time during COVID. You don't have a 20-day shoot. You have a
18 days.
You have 18 days, and you have 2 days here. You have 2 days here. You have a day here. Okay, and what they did so wonderfully is you write out your outline, and we go, okay, we're gonna get this done, and this is we'll maybe need to get these lines in to make sure that the story moves forward. But other than that, have a ball, and then it's about sculpting it when it's and having a great editor.
Yeah, we had all worked together before, which was key, because there wasn't enough time to be like, let's try to figure out how to work together. You know what I mean? Because most of the scenes in the film are 1 to 2 takes, because we had to move. We didn't want to keep people in a building long. She even became a COVID officer. We tried to keep the crew very small.
True.
Just that's why we.
Well, I think you might have a larger cast than you did a crew.
Yes.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, we did. Back in the day.
Yeah, this guy did a lot.
No, we had it was very, I come from documentaries, I've worked in documentaries for about 14 years, and so being able to just jump into kind of the setting, it was interesting, putting on the narrative hat of it, but I mean, obviously having such amazing talented actors, made the job so much easier. So yeah, we did 2 to 3 takes for each setup, so I mean, the strategy, ultimately was 2 cameras, and we made it feel like 5 to 6.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the second part of my question, because and people that don't do documentaries may not know this, but it's, documentaries are essentially waiting for things to happen. You're waiting for stuff to basically happen in front of you. This is not that. This is, what's going to happen, but you have to make it look like you're waiting for stuff to happen. What's the complication of making something planned look spontaneous and having to be just a little bit late in the way you're capturing things and just a little out of focus, and that's complicated to do.
Yeah, I mean, really what we tried to do, we had a lot of kind of discovery takes. I think it's kind of the way we described it, is we try to shoot everything, get our wides in first, to kind of figure out the blocking, figure out what kind of worked, what kind of lines we need to kind of zero in on, kind of be surgical about it in post. And then we would move to over the shoulders, we moved to close-ups, and once we kind of had the rhythm of that down, we were able to kind of be a little more effective. I think the first, maybe 3 or 4 days, we were doing 5 takes, and it was exhausting. It was exhausting.
You can't improvise for 8 hours. It's not.
And we just had to come up with we just had to keep ourselves very strict because we had, pretty long days, so we were kind of trying to all fit in, to try to keep it to 2-3 takes max, and then maybe some insert shots if we needed.
Well, also because they're good actors, everyone was aware of the camera. So when he would do camera whips and stuff like that, they were aware and would wait for moments because they're good improvisers. They knew when the camera was on them. And in a way, though, it's almost like a documentary because it was improvised and you were having to capture, like, I don't know what's going to happen here. Like, we've finished our outline and they're still going. Let's just see what happens.
Right. And having a long servo lens was definitely a way to keep me from going nuts because I could just zoom in when I needed to and punch in at last minute. But I mean, it was a lot of playing. It was a lot of sitting down and coming up with just these different scenarios and then finding the button that would kind of be our next out of the scene, next way to end the scene. So.
Has anybody done the math to find out if this is the film that uses the word anal the most times?
I hope it is. That'd be
It
hilarious.
feels like it should be.
Do we get a prize for that?
Just so you know, that scene was like 15 minutes. We're like, yeah, we should cut it down. Heck, that's a lot of that word for 15 minutes. So.
Now, in trying to think of how to introduce you guys, I was like, you're kind of the holy trinity of this film because it's like they're the multi-hyphenate of your directors, your producers, your writers, your location scouts, your this, your editors, it's like all the jobs that you guys had to take on. As the people who didn't have to take on all of those roles, what did you observe them going through, in terms of their workload? Because you guys get to sort of just come in and like, hey, we're going to improvise, this is going to be fun.
And that's what it was. We just came in easy peasy for us. It's exactly what it sounds like. They are multi-hyphenate, so they're doing lots and lots of work, just trying to get it together, and they did. The product is so fun, and it's a result of the hard work that they put in, being multi-hyphenate. So, no, I mean, even with Mrs. Roger Bastion, all the food that she's coming in with, the bags of potato salad, that was Kelsey. So there's an outline. It's all well thought out. They thought of everything. The cinnamon rolls, all that is like it. I didn't eat it. I'm telling you, my dad was eating.
I will say, Blake Collins is here, who is our amazing sound designer.
Yeah, thank you.
And oh my goodness, he was somebody who none of us saw, and so I wanted to recognize him and all of that work that he did behind the scenes. He was like the fourth crew member, really. So, thank you.
Yeah. He called me a couple times. He's like, hey, so I'm editing this right now, and is this what they say? I'm like, yes, that's what they say. Like, okay, just make sure it's great. That makes no sense. Okay, cool.
I think we handed you 50 tracks of audio to work with or something like that.
Yeah, that's great.
Individual lobster.
It sounded great.
Yeah.
So another layer of this is you have found, which is you've got a show in the show.
Yes.
How much of that did you guys, because that's a whole nother layer of like, what, huh? How much of that was outlined? How much of that did you know how much you were going to need? Like, how did that evolve?
So I looked at the show, Curb Your Enthusiasm, and Larry David does this thing where he doesn't tell actors until the moment what they're going to be doing. So I did that with the play Found, is that thought of it and then would tell them the moment. You notice the Roger character with me in the film will tell people, now you blame him, now you do this. It was fun to take that like Larry David skill, I guess, and put that into it. So with the play Found, we kind of had this idea the night before, like, here's shoot on the fish. Like, we're like, what's a simple thing that we can make dramatic? Like, let's not joke about it. Like, when you lose a fish, it's sad for a person. So let's take that emotion, like, make it real. The cast was like, this is so stupid, let's do it.
And we've gotten so many requests, like, is there footage of the full play though? Where do we see that? The answer is no, we don't have that.
No,
Sorry.
we don't.
I'm so sorry.
But it could happen with the right financier.
I'm going to open it up if anybody out here has any questions. I don't want to take all the time. Yes, you right over there.
It's not so much a question as...
Well, then, no, I said questions. I'm very specific.
Too bad.
Oh! Fancy.
I like you.
I was very surprised surprised how funny it was.
Thank
It
you.
was really funny. And it had a very the office feel to it.
Yeah.
And so thank you for making my evening really lovely. This was unexpected. how funny it was. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate that. You know, it's funny, I think that's the greatest compliment. We have to say like, hey, I didn't know it was gonna be good. I'm not saying like that. But, I mean, if you walked on set, you would have thought it looked like a student film.
Yeah.
Because you're like, where's the crew? There's just someone like, yeah, action, you know what I mean? They're like, okay, let's do this, and then, I remember when I threw the edit, you know, I was like, we're editing, you're like, what are you editing? Like, what is it? Like, what is happening? So we did throw this together, but we put a lot of heart in. I'm glad the whole point is to find joy in this, right? We want you to leave feeling like there's hope. We want to do comedies that have hope in them, at heart, you know what I mean? Not just some, all right, well, moving on with my life. So I appreciate you.
So awful as COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really great.
Thank you.
Did it surprise you how funny it turned out?
In the editing room?
I remember just doing rough assemblies and cackling just out in the editing bay and just being like, well, how did this happen? That it just came together.
We had to cut so much too.
Yeah, we have hours of footage.
There's extra scenes of like,
Oh, God.
this is Roger Bastion and she's like, you know, you need to pull up your bootstraps, and like there's this whole, there's so many things we had to cut, that was the hardest part. So it did surprise me.
Extra.
Romantic scene.
But we've had a wonderful festival run with this, and have been so just honored by the response, really, by audiences, that it's a communal experience. Like, you have to kind of be in an audience to really appreciate it. Because people will hear it all over the place. People will pick up on a line over here, and then somebody will follow and they'll find, the joke on this side. It's just this back and forth, communal experience that only comedy kind of allows for,
Can we just talk about Bryce?
Oh,
Can we just talk
he's supposed to be
about
here
Casey?
tonight.
He's sick. He's sick. He's gonna be here tonight.
Casey Heim, fantastic actor.
One of the most unbelievable characters I think I've ever seen. I mean, and without saying a single thing.
Yeah.
I mean, where did that character come from? Because it is kind of genius.
So him and I wrote this sketch called Intermission at the Groundlings, where we didn't say anything. We were trying to prove to our father that we could do the job well. And so it killed. And we said one day, like, we gotta do an Usher film or something. We ended up putting in this film. And it's interesting that we would do takes and he'd be like, hey, do you want to like say something? Like, and we were like, no, it's working. He's like, I think you want to say like 8 lines in the whole film. I'm like, dude, when we were editing it, he's like, what does it look? He had no idea that he was basically in the entire film. And like, it's this huge character. He didn't realize he's just in the background going like, you know what I mean? Think about being in this room and one of you is just going this. And like, you don't know if the camera just got that. So, I don't know if that answers your question, but.
No, absolutely, because it's not a unique character. I mean, he's kind of a universal character because he's just this guy who's kind of shit upon, and he just is taking it. He likes this girl, and she likes somebody else, and he just can't seem to catch a break. But the way he reacts with the camera, and he's the one that calls attention, like, why are there cameras here? Like, he's the one that actually seems most self-conscious about the cameras being there. And I just thought it was a really genius move that he was that kind of through line.
I mean, yeah, and even just to talk about Caitlin, his companion on the computer, I mean, that was a real thing. She couldn't be with us, and we said, we are dying for you to be in this with us. We love you. Her name's Emily Pendergast. And we're like, will you be on as a Zoom character? And she said yes, and so we just figured it out. But every time she kind of goes out, it's real. Like, she just really cut out on Zoom.
Oh, yeah. It
it's
froze.
on Zoom.
That was not, it
froze like that.
That was in the moment.
And we're keeping that. So yeah, anyway, hope things developed as we went.
I feel like because we ended up having to, because we were adhering to COVID restrictions and we were trying to just be above board as much as possible, we had to spread out our timeline. So we shot 18 days, yes, but that was over a 6-month period.
Yeah.
So we would come back to it every so for availability and that sort of thing. So that time, we discovered that some of the characters would change and kind of grow in different ways. Arcs would kind of come out of essentially necessity because actors have become available, but not available.
Yeah.
And we just had to kind of let this be a very fluid, flexible outline and story. And ultimately, it's a better film because of it.
Well, and because it was improvised, we were able to change with the time. Someone's like, hey, I posted something now, it's been 3 months. And we're like, well, then we'll rewrite this moment because it was improvised. It kind of saved us,
Or like, I cut my hair. We're like,
Oh, yeah.
Sam cut her hair.
I think there were 7 haircuts.
Let's just
That's a scene.
Great.
We got time for one more question. I'm gonna go right there, dead center.
Yeah, so the process of making a film that you're shooting both in Tennessee and California. Chris, I know before the screening you mentioned that you're in Tennessee now, but are you guys based here? Or do you have people in Tennessee? How did that whole process work, especially when it came to scouting locations in Tennessee? Because that's, I mean, obviously you make trips, but if this is like pandemic, then even that's tricky, especially with schools, and places like that, because they're locked.
Great question, and it's a fun one because we used the Groundlings Theater. It was shut down at the time. Groundlings Theater on Melrose in Hollywood, totally shut down. All the renovations were actually happening to the theater, which is like perfect timing. Great, and then they finished, and but we actually so we knew we had to do some B-roll to get the Tennessee vibe, and we looked at B-roll. It was really expensive, so it was actually cheaper for us to. Okay, we're gonna take a trip, and we all went to Tennessee, and we kind of fell in love with it. There's a lot of production going on out there, and so we're bi-coastal right now, the two of us, for some production stuff that's happening out there right now. But when we went out there, we knew we had to get some exterior shots of the theater. So the theater, when you see it on the outside, that's actually in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, and we called around and we found a theater, and the owner was like, oh my gosh, I've taken classes at the Groundlings. I'd love for you to film here. And we didn't pay for any location. I mean, everybody was just so excited that we were filming. The museum is the Burbank Historical Society Museum in Burbank that I grew up with as a kid, and I just thought, there's this weird museum with creepy people and these creepy dolls. We should definitely, that definitely belongs in Pigeon Valley.
Yeah, it goes. You gotta go.
It's fantastic. Yeah, donate. It's amazing. So yeah, we just had a lot of people just kind of came together for this, but we went back and forth, did our B-roll, Matt shot stuff in Gatlinburg.
Everything was shot here.
Everything was shot here except for the exteriors on the theater, the beginning of the film, when Roger's walking down, stuff like that. Penny walking into the theater, and so we went back and forth.
Please help me thank 14% of the cast and 87% of the crew. A reopening.
We're gonna reopen.